Have a roll call, please.
Man, this is stuffy.
Sandy Slavin.
Malcolm White.
Donna Brown.
Peter Dunlop.
Jim DeBerry. We have minutes from October 8th. Jim, I think you might, look. Okay, how's this?
Minor detail.
We have minutes from October 8th.
Mr. Chair, I have approved and read the minutes and make a motion to accept them as presented.
Do I have a second?
Well, a little discussion. Spell my name right and I'll be happy.
You know, you're getting awfully pushy. We didn't see you last week.
If Sandra says they're good, kinda.
You spelled white wrong?
Malcolm.
I don't know if it's white or Malcolm. I don't even know.
Malcolm is another L
Oh, okay.
before the last M.
All right, I pull back my motion and say we approve the minutes as amended.
You're so sweet.
There we go.
Do I have a second now?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I wasn't here.
Say what?
I wasn't here.
Okay, 4 zippy, 401.
3.
3, oh, you weren't here either. 301. 2. I got it somewhere. Citizens' participation. Patty, you a citizen? No, you're a rep.
No, not a citizen.
Okay.
I gave that up when I
Oh,
became
then
a
you can
selectman.
vote in California.
I gave that up when I became a selectman.
Obviously.
Who seconded the minutes?
Okay, we have
Did the
abatements.
Thank you.
I did.
Mac.
There's some abatements here. The first one is for the Briarwood Motel, 388 Marion Road. And the recommendation is denying this abatement. And the reason, because the water has not been shut off for a full year.
I make a motion that we accept this, the sewer, director's. I make a motion that we accept this, the director of this, the water treatment, facilities, suggestion that we deny it. Because they did not turn the water off, and that's part of the policy, and unfortunately, we make it known to everyone.
I'll second it, unfortunately.
All in favor?
Aye.
Reluctantly.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay, that's Donna. You're in favor.
Yes.
Peter's in favor. Okay, we're gonna go about a 3-2-0.
Nothing personal.
3-2-0.
No, I understand.
What was the vote, sorry?
3-2-0.
May I ask who opposed?
I
Excuse
did.
me?
May I ask
I
who
did.
opposed for the record?
I did, Mac did.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear on that abatement. What she's really saying is due to COVID, she wants relief.
No, I understand that, Guy.
That's-
It's just that,
okay.
and the only reason I'm voting against it is because I wish we were in a position to be able to do something for them,
So don't I.
and we cannot, so,
We all do.
But you're voting against policy.
yeah, I know that. But, so maybe it needs to be
Do
readjusted.
you
I
want to
don't know.
make an exception to the policy?
No, not at this point. I think maybe we need to relook at the policies.
I couldn't
that
agree
kind of
with you
thing.
more. I'd like to help the guy out, but
I would have liked to have helped Waterwiz too, but
Yep.
we didn't.
Is he eligible for any relief under the stimulus somehow?
I don't know what the stimulus has to do with any of them, or how that works.
Storing in somebody's pocket.
Yep. Okay, the other abatement that we have is for 311 Onset Avenue. And that is one that is, the recommendation is approval. It's because of a clerical error.
I make a motion we approve the abatement for 311 Onset Ave.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
500. Okay. We had a discussion last meeting regarding the sewer capacity. and where we're at. And actually, Russ, you've got some input on that. Could you join the fray, please? Introducing Russ Kleekamp from GHD, who has done
Sure, sure, absolutely. No, Russ, I have no problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ready, sir?
Okay, sir, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you. For the record, my name is Russ Kleekamp. I'm an engineer with GHD. We're working on a plant evaluation where we've been asked to look at the flows coming into the plant and make recommendations based on what the flows and the commitments are. Entering the facility, at the last sewer commissioners meeting, there was a draft of this memorandum that you're looking at now. And we were asked to add a few additional flows to it, being the 60,000 gallons per day from the Rosebrook building, and then also to incorporate the business development overlay district, which is estimated at 500,000 gallons per day. So I'll give a brief review of the memorandum and the flows. We tried to keep this as condensed as possible. So if we, obviously, to read the whole thing, but if we go to page 4, you'll see a table there, and that's a list of the flows that we were provided by the town that have been committed to the water pollution control facility. So just again as a summary, your discharge permit, or the allowable flow that can be discharged to the Agawam River, is 1.56 million gallons per day. The treatment plant itself was designed to treat 2 million gallons per day. So that's a little bit of a unique situation. A lot of times the treatment plants, both size and discharge permit, are the same number, but that's not the case for here, which is what it is. So when you're looking at flows, if you take your average flow for a calendar year, each month, the sewer superintendent has to report the flows as part of the obligations for the discharge permit. And if you go look over the course of a calendar year, if your flows average 80% of your discharge permit, that triggers a plan of action that has to be submitted to Mass DEP. So this 80% number is one that we looked at as somewhat of a threshold that triggers certain requirements, certain things that need to be done. If we look at the flows from, now again, the way it's written is for a calendar year, so obviously we're in 2020 now, we haven't completed this year, but for the year 2019, our flows were, bear with me, let me just find it here in the memorandum. They were at 76% of your permitted discharge, meaning you're almost at that 80% flow. And we reported this back in over several meetings now. We've known about this number, and that's the existing flows. So we're kind of building this memorandum based on the 2019 flows because that's the last calendar year we have. Obviously, we're in a drought now, and we know that a lot of the flows entering the facility are inflow and infiltration, which are dependent on groundwater. So with drought conditions, you have lower groundwater, which is indicative of less I&I flow. So even though, if you look at the past months for 2020, especially when we're in the drought, they're going to seem a little lower, which they are what they are. But keep in mind, once the water table raises back up and we do get the rains again, that I&I flow is going to kick up. So looking at the 2019 flows, that's 76% of your capacity. If you add on your commitments, which are outlined, itemized in this table of approximately 275,000 gallons per day, that brings you up to, and correct, because we just ended up revising this afternoon, looking at it, so brings you up to 93% of your capacity. However, that does not include the 500,000 gallons for the business development overlay district. That has, from my understanding, been allowed for 80 Makepeace to use through their agreement with the town. So obviously, if we're at 93% and we add on 500,000 gallons per day, we've overcommitted, is somewhat of the bottom line. It is the bottom line. Furthermore, if you add up the 275,000 gallons of the committed flows for the various developments plus the 500,000, it brings you up to,
Bunch, 775,000.
yes, within a few, almost to the 2 million gallons. It basically brings up to 98% of the plant's design capacity, meaning that likely any development beyond that will require additional upgrades at the treatment facility. So, these are the numbers presented. There's not a lot of engineering opinion. It's just simple mathematics. If you have what you have for a current flow, you add the commitments, and you have a certain permit, it's very straightforward there. So that's, go ahead.
We all knew this was gonna happen. We sat here and said this was gonna happen. Nobody listened. So what are we gonna do? We're not supposed to have to be over 80% with our current permit.
You can be over the 80%. You just have to have a plan and action in place explaining what you're doing with that remainder 20%. So we list some recommendations and next steps in this memorandum. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're recommending not to tie in any additional flows right now because the treatment plant has a certain condition where, because of the excessive spikes for the I&I flows, it triggers a non-permitted discharge. It's a discharge that is not allowed by your existing discharge permit. If you keep having these violations, that's something that's going to get negative attention from DEP and potentially end up in a consent order where you're forced to do some improvements, which we are now. We have out to bid, or we have a contractor on hand to build these new equalization basins, so we can say with a straight face, we understand our problems. We're taking steps to help mitigate that, provide additional equalization. But those are going to take some time to build. So before those are built, we're not recommending in adding any more flow. Now, again, engineers are conservative by nature. It's a recommendation. We don't make policy for the town. But what the concern is that DEP is on record. They know that you have this condition where you're doing these non-permitted discharges, which is not a good thing, and they happen quite frequently, especially in the spring of 2018. It happened again in 2019. It's known about. It's been happening. So if the town, what my concern would be is if I was on DEP's standpoint and the town did not make any sort of improvements to mitigate this and kept allowing flow to tie in, they're going to say, wait a minute, you have a known condition where you're prone to overflows, yet you're still tying in flow. I mean, if anybody was sitting on DEP, they can say that's somewhat of a reckless manner to act in. So that's my concern. I don't want DEP to come down with any sort of negative attention on the town. So the good news is we do have a plan in place. We are looking to put these equalization basins in. So at a minimum, once these basins are installed, that will give you excess equalization capacity, and then the flows can be reevaluated then. I think the biggest thing that we see is this, the 500,000 gallons, or I've even been told that it's an unlimited, maybe not unlimited, but AD Makepeace can use to their extent based on their agreement. So that is, the plant has a finite capacity. We're almost there under current conditions. We've made commitments, and we still have this large chunk of flow out there. So that's the immediate recommendation, is to not tie in any flows, whether it's committed or non-committed. I mean, we can't do much about controlling the I&I. That's out of our control to some degree, but we can control, the tie-ins and those connections.
Now, will the D-night filters,
So there's some other, no. So the additional D-night filters we're putting in is to bring the plant's capacity, to current code, and bring it back up to that 2 million gallon per day. And there's some additional factors going on at the plant too. So it's not just the physical flow of water that goes through the plant, it's also your nutrient loads that go in there. For example, there's a high amount of phosphorus coming into the plant. Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a high amount of phosphorus coming in, and because the clarifiers aren't doing an appropriate job, they're having issues with the settling of the phosphorus. So when you get a high flow, the flow physically pushes through the plant faster, it pushes all those solids, and it clogs the D-night filters. So then what happens is you have to take the D-night filters offline to backwash them and wash them through. Well, what happens when you take them offline? The flow is still going, and because the plant does not have redundant D-night filters, they have to push it into the equalization basins that are there now. So even in conditions of drought, the existing raw wastewater basins are still being used, which you wouldn't expect that to happen. But that's from a loading standpoint, a nutrient loading standpoint at the plant. So it's not just the physical loads, it's the nutrient loads that impact how the plant operates. So that's why, in a perfect world, would recommend not to add flows until both the new basins are installed and also the D-night filters. But we also understand, there's a town to run and operate here, and this is going to be a hard enough decision to wait until the basins are constructed to add in flow. So that's why we're leaving it at, we'll reevaluate the situation after the basins are built.
What is our time frame? I don't remember exactly on the completion of those basins
We're hoping by summer of next year they'll be online.
this coming summer.
Yeah.
So essentially 6 months, roughly, 8 months,
I think we have 270 days in the contract, 9 months.
9 months, okay.
So your recommendation is that even these committed flows, that nothing of this be tied in until at least we get the EQs?
Correct.
EBs, equalization, EBs.
Correct.
So we need to, if that is going to be our position, we need to let these people know they can't use the flow that we've committed to until another date.
Correct. I mean, now, if they're in the middle of construction or the middle of building, maybe there's some exceptions that can be made if it's on the lower end, but the overwhelming concern is that, we have a known condition of, I don't want to say failure, but a known condition of an operation at the plant, and we can't simply keep allowing flow to tie in while we have that. It's not in the town's best interest.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, just to make a point that, Bourne, their building, we don't know what they're going to need. The plaza down by in front of Walmart, there's construction. They've got Delta ready to go online. They built a Starbucks, and they built another restaurant. Great Hill is continually increasing their flow. These are projects ongoing. Woodland Cove hasn't started yet, but I met with them, and they're ready. They're on go. They're starting their procedure. Assisted living facility in Sandwich, we haven't even they've got permission, but that's not even started, so that's not an issue. Same with Chapel Lane. Mine at Forest Condos, I haven't heard from them folks. We gave them a year, nothing's moved on that, so we could probably send a letter. The single-family home in Tremont, 14 Tremont Street, that's done, that's online now. The single-family home in 240 Oak, I have no idea about. And the Makepeace, they have one more building to build, but they haven't identified when they're gonna do that. So some of these projects are ongoing. How do I tell Great Hill Mobile Park to stop? I tell them to stop, I guess, but they have commitments because there's P&Ss and things of that sort. They have commitments to get through a certain amount of phases, and to stop those phases, I don't know how we do that. So, there's a lot of, nuances. Instead of just saying, no, we're done, we're affecting some major projects with repercussions, and I don't know where that goes. And I know we're going to talk to Mr. Bowen about legal of these issues, and I don't know if Mr. Chair, if you had a chance to do that, but I think we have to be careful because these are ongoing projects.
Okay, the thing that I'm looking at right now with these numbers listed, they're not all online, they're committed. And from your discussion just then, it sounds to me like Woodland Cove, for example, that's probably a year out.
Well, they plan to start in the spring.
Pardon me?
They plan to start in the spring.
I know, we're planning on having the D-night basins in the summer. So all they're gonna do is build in the spring, they're not gonna be,
Think about online?
People in.
Okay. So
what I'm saying is.
Great Hill goes online daily. They just did 4 more, so they go online daily. And so they're working towards their, whatever it was, 20,000 that they have. Bay Point goes online daily in their building, and they've got permission, they started their second phase. So they go online when they build, they sell, they go online. Robinson's gonna go online because they're building there also. What we don't see here is the gas station. They're building in the middle of a building now. We gave the gas station permission there, they're building, and they're gonna go online. So there's flows that, we can't stop. We committed, we can't stop. And then, again, the legalities of saying you can go, you can't, it's way out of my league, so.
I guess this isn't a question of saying you're gonna stop. I'm looking at saying, how many of these do we expect to come online in the next 6 months? Because we're looking at 6 to 9 months, we're gonna have the basins, so we'll have capacity for overflow, which gives us a little breathing room in there. These all won't be online in the next 9 months.
And Mr. Chairman, and I agree, but I don't see any I for the commitments we've made, because there's I factors.
Well, I
And we
realize
haven't, none of this speaks about wet weather we may or may not get in the spring. So I just want to be careful how we approach it.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think Sandy had a.
No, Donna's asking.
Oh, Donna did, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Donna.
Mr. Chairman, I am appalled that we're in this situation. This is our fault. This is our fault. We should have done something beforehand. We sat back and, what are we gonna do? We knew this was, and we kept approving upon recommendations and approving. And where are we now?
Looking at the situation, see where we go from here.
No, that's not where we are. We're in the shitter, that's where we are. Sorry.
Is this list complete? I don't see the buildings on Minot Ave that we discussed a few.
Mountain Forest condominiums.
Those are the Minot Forest condominiums.
Those were those, that's
Yes.
those 6 units?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the only one that's not in the list that we're looking at is that 500,000 for Makepeace.
It's mentioned further down,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, but I mean,
And it's-
just looking at that table, it's not in that, that's all.
Right, and again, we talked last week about, I know the number I've been told is 500,000, but it would warrant a discussion to see what, if they have a plan, how that's gonna be spaced out, because yes, could they have it tomorrow if they needed it, and under the agreement, from my understanding, they could take it, but it's not gonna come tomorrow, it's gonna be in segments and phases, so that can help us better plan if we know, at what rate they're gonna be contributing that flow.
They have enough room to put a package treatment plant up if they had to.
They do.
They have plenty of,
We're not picking your comment up.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, come up, because Mr. Chairman, I'm interested in what Mr. Tropiano has to say. I really am.
Who is this?
Patrick, could you sit over here away from Russ? if you don't
absolutely.
mind? Thank you.
I sure can. Sit wherever you want me. You tell me to go wherever you want.
Oh, you really,
Got a nice seat in the parking lot.
that was an offer.
Tell me what I deserve anyway. So, Makepeace has got 500,000 gallons supposedly saved, but, they haven't, it's been a long time. I'm not so sure for the BOD. I'm not sure, obviously we want that to happen, but if worse came to worse, they could put up a package treatment plant up there, and probably live with it, you know what I mean, if they had to. But, it's tough when you make a commitment to these people and they spend a lot of money, which they all have, to get their projects going and doing whatever. And then all of a sudden you say to them, well, hey, wait a second, that's problematic.
I think at this point, what we're looking at, or at least what I'm looking at, is that we've made commitments. Whether or not they exercise them, that's another whole discussion. And whether or not they can put in treatment plants of their own, that's another whole discussion. But from our standpoint right now, I think we have to look at the fact that these commitments are out there. They have the ability, or they can tie in and load us up, and we're in big trouble. So what do we do at this particular point in time in order to be able to alleviate some of this problem?
Well, I think
Try to make the improvements that we're trying to make right now, that we're in the process of making.
well, in the short term, the only thing you really can do is you've got to get those basins online and get your filters in place. That'll help you with some of your capacity. But long term, I mean, we have a lot of I out there, and we really have not chased any of it. We're really not any closer to cutting down the I because we keep running into all these roadblocks. Everybody's afraid to go out and chase it, you know what I mean? It's not you guys, it's not your fault, it's just, there's a legal issue, there's a this issue, there's a that issue, whatever. And, there's a lot of gallons sitting out there that could be eliminated if we could just, find a path. And I don't know what that path is. Maybe we need the legislature to make some kind of a ruling that allows us to go after that a little harder. I don't know. I don't know where we're gonna go, but we certainly need to have that discussion, that's for sure.
Well, I think Guy can probably comment on it better than I can, but we're looking at the lining of the pipes with the understanding that that is eliminating or reducing the I potential that we have from those particular areas.
Right.
But we've got an awful lot of pipes in town that need to be lined.
Well, that's the leakage,
not gonna
which
happen.
that's the leakage into the pipes, which we see, you know, especially, I mean, Swiss Beach was loaded with that, but look where they put it. They put it right in the water table, and the pipe is, you know, doing one of these things all the time. Tide comes up, tide goes down. I mean, they had all kinds of issues with that pipe. It was transite, which is not good anyway. You know, that whole area should probably be done in 4-foot height. They should have put in pump system and just done it 4 feet. Or if worse came to worse, they should have pitched it the opposite way
Well, it's done, so
and then pumped it. Right, exactly. I mean, you know,
that's not any sort of a solution.
exactly. But I'm just saying that the other I that we can't go after, which is really
I
a
don't think
big
there's
point.
any argument. We've got a problem.
Yeah.
How bad is the I? Are we getting any place on it?
No, we lined quite a bit of pipe last year, I think 2 miles, and it just pushed it down further on down the line. We plugged the holes in the pipe. We estimated 138,000 gallons by the holes. We fixed the holes, we plugged the pipe, and all it did is it raised the water table in that area and sent it down the line to some other hole in the
What is
pipe.
your estimate of I?
Between 300,000 and 400,000 gallons per day on a,
Say it again, please.
it's I'll give it to you this way here. It's roughly 110,000 gallons per inch of rain. So when you see an inch of rain, you know we're getting 110,000 gallons of water. And now here's the unknown. We do know that sump pumps that run for longer periods of time, not only do they bring I, but it's a long duration. The clarifiers are undersized from day one. So what happens when you try to settle out the solids, they don't go down far enough because the clarifiers are shallow. They're 8-footers. It's unheard of in the industry. Back in the 70s, it was heard of. So the extended flow, because of the sump pumps and the extended flow, it just rattles it up and puts it over. So there's a lot of issues, but 100,000 gallons, 110 per day per inch. So when I watch the weather report and they say an inch of rain today and tomorrow, that's 220,000 gallons of extra flow. Now, here's the thing. It's only during the rain events, absolutely. But I've got to make plans for that rain event. I can't say it only rains 10 days a year, so the other, 255 days I can do what I want. That's not the case because I have to be prepared for that I on those given days, and that's a capacity issue. So I can't give away that capacity. When we talk about 80%, 90%, remember the rest of it we save for if you will, for the I. So it's okay to be at 80%, but I always call it the elephant in the room is how much I are you going to get? Right now, it's dry, not much. We've got a little bit because of the rain, so those are the kind of questions that I can't answer because that's weather-related.
So right now, Guy, the basin expansion is to help us handle the I more than it is to increase capacity.
Absolutely.
The
So
basins,
you can't
Can't
do
say,
both.
no, we can't say, okay, I got the basin so
So-
we can continue to add at a higher rate. Yes,
Right.
you're absolutely right.
Jim, have you had a chance to talk to council?
I've got an
I'm
appointment next-
particularly
I've got an
interested
appointment
to
next
seeing
week.
if we can sunset some of these commitments.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to do. I was trying to get in touch with him the last 2 weeks.
And
but
if
he's
we
been
put them on
buried.
hold, where do we position the town,
Right.
liability-wise? It's not saying it's going away. We're saying, give us a chance to catch up. There's definitely cost involved,
Yep,
or there may be cost involved for some of these developers or whoever.
right.
But what are you gonna do?
Well, that's it. I mean, I've also
It's
talked
over
to-
my head, I'm not legal.
Well, I've got an appointment next week with him. We haven't been able to get one this last couple of
Okay.
weeks. He's been buried.
Are we?
Find out.
One last question. You mentioned the comprehensive wastewater management plan. Has that been initiated?
No, yes, we have a meeting next Thursday. We have a meeting next Thursday to discuss the actual areas of sewering, and they've actually started, but next Thursday, we'll really hone
I'm
down on
looking
the
at the
areas.
math at the bottom.
Sorry?
I think it's important. I'm looking at the math.
Oh, it's
What
critical.
it costs to borrow.
So if we don't have, yes,
Like with the
absolutely, it's
lining guy,
critical.
the only thing that limits the lining is the cost.
Yes.
And which fire are we gonna put out?
And the lining, because of so much I&I, becomes structural. All of Onset around 12th Street, all those streets, that's all clay. They're leaking like a sieve. All right, they're all over the place, and that's a lot of I&I. So all those pipes should be lined. We won't get it all, we get 1%, but more importantly, those pipes will come together again because they're in trouble, in some serious trouble. We've got pipes to the marsh that comes to the pump station at Lopes Field. That pipe's in major trouble, it goes right through the marsh. And the same thing along the beaches, coming along the beach from Point Independence. That manhole sunk. And then you've got that, asbestos pipe all under the beach, that surcharge, and that's in trouble. So my point is not as much as we're doing it for I&I, we have structural issues. In some of those places, I cannot even put a shovel. It would not be allowed to put a shovel, so the other alternative is to line these pipes. Like we're doing today on the marsh, it's Smith's. That pipe's in trouble, but I can't dig it up and replace it because no one will give me permission. The state won't let me dig it up. Imagine replace those pipes. I can't. I'm lining them because I can enter through manholes. Same thing on Mara Cove. We're lining those pipes. If we had to dig them up and replace them, it's not going to happen. So because we did these things many, many years ago when it was allowed, we got to make corrections today, and it becomes very costly.
Well, my question is, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do if the pipes break? And you're gonna have to replace them.
We have to try to line it and push through. Now, if it's what the state will say, bring it up. So that means we change everything. We looked at the cost of eliminating the beach, and that means I've got to put low-gravity pumps everybody, the entire system. So we're looking at a little under $1 million. It may have went up to maybe, I think it was 12 million to do all of Pinehurst. So it can be done. We just got to raise everything back up out of the water. That means a whole new system, a whole new thing. The pipe goes away. We just change it and put everything up higher. We don't fix it, we just move it to a high ground.
Only money.
Russ, when you're doing a design, right, what's an acceptable percentage of I&I?
So the designs, right, for old sewer pipes, DEP recommends 500 gallons per day per inch mile diameter of pipe. I know that's a very long-winded, exactly. So to break it down easier, it can be for existing systems, we've seen as high as mid-30 to 38, 39% in other towns that have existing systems. For when we design new systems, you calculate your flow from the homes and you take about 24%, 25% is what it works down to. So it's about a quarter. We do design for it because some of it you can't control. I&I is an issue in every town that is.
What's your best estimate that we're at?
Oh,
5%, 6%, 10%?
You're higher than that. You're probably, if your flow is probably between 20 and 35% of your flow might be I&I, maybe more on wet years. Some of the other towns, what they do with I&I, they have things like smoke testing, for example, where you fill the lines with smoke and it goes through any illegal connections and you physically see it coming out of properties. You have to be selective, the neighborhoods that you do that in, depending on where you are, that can be a surprise. You do have to notify residents that is going to happen. But another more interesting thought I had on another recent project dealing with stormwater from private properties is the towns came up with incentives to say, hey, if you handle your own stormwater, you'll get this. So is there any sort of incentive you can give? For example, if people allow random inspections, give them 5, 10% off a sewer bill or something like that? Because if you think about it, if we have to build an expanded plant, I forget what the plant, that there's a new plant in Bourne, it was 100,000 gallons. I think it was like $8 or $9 million for that 100,000 gallons. So just for the sake of this discussion, and that's it, say we had to design for 500,000 more gallons in the future, that might be $45 or $50 million. There's a price per gallon that it costs to design for. So what if we took a price per gallon, if we estimated we could remove X amount from a property and say, we'll take this percentage off your sewer bill?
Does an EPA restrict you on using the sump pumps? I mean, we can't okay it.
No, it's not okay to do. It's
You're saying
right.
charge them.
I'm saying offer them.
Hypothetically okaying it.
It's offering an incentive to allow, access to the property to do inspections to make sure they're not connected, because what they're doing now is they're tying in.
Oh,
and
you're not suggesting we let them pump into the system?
No. We're doing that to say we could have access to your property to do an inspection at any time to verify that you're not pumping in. So we could go down and look at, that's the problem with the sump pumps, is how do you get in the people's properties to go down and verify it. I mean, it can be illegal all you want, but if there's no accountability, it's just
But that's only gonna get us the sump pumps.
the sump pumps, which,
What percentage of the I a sump pumps guy?
40%, rough number is 40%.
40%?
it's a fair amount, especially when you have neighborhoods like the Swiss Beach where you have gravity pipes that are sunk, 10, 12, 15 feet into the groundwater table. If they're older pipes, I mean, that can be constant flow. When you get the higher groundwater table around basements, all that water comes in through the cracks and the voids. I mean, come up with a program. I know, like for stormwater, the towns get low phosphorus, low nitrogen fertilizer handed out for free. You could offer, waterproof sealant for basements to help waterproof a basement, offer some incentive to help encourage reduction. I mean, there's two ways to go about it, either kind of working against going the enforcement route or working with and trying to come up with a plan, or maybe a hybrid of both. It's not easy for every town. I mean, every town has the struggle. For lower cases, if you expect an isolated property, sometimes you can do that smoke test to verify. You can camera all the lines and leave the camera at a lateral and watch it in off hours, but it's a very time-consuming process to do that, and labor intensive. And I know the WPCF has probably limited staff to do the work already, so if you assign that task, that's going to take up an employee or two full-time for, a long time. And again, these are just, ideas, some thoughts, from whether or not it will work in Wareham, is to be determined, I guess.
And we have an I&I report, and that report recommended all these things. We were going to borrow $3 million to follow up on all these things, but we have an I&I report that explains all this. We know exactly where an I&I is, what areas, what part of Onset is the worst, Swiss Beach. We're getting a lot of I&I in Briarwood. That's brand new. We inspected 4 connections and 3 leaked. And that's a brand new one, so all that's identified.
Is the town administrator and the selectmen are obviously aware of our issue, right?
I believe so. I can't speak for any of them,
No, we are.
but the information's out
You
there.
are?
Yeah, we're aware of it. We know. It's, everybody knows.
And something else to consider, we have, I believe, 3 40B projects on the plate, of which 2 have come before us, and we told them we'd table it. We haven't heard anything from Littleton Drive, but don't we have a requirement under state law to offer sewer for 40B projects?
Not if you don't have
We
capacity.
don't have it.
So that is,
That's
because
a
I was
fact.
told,
That's
This
a fact.
case
If
law
you don't
both
have any
ways.
capacity, you don't have to give out what you don't have.
I was under the impression that that was not the case, that we had to.
No, that's not the
No,
case.
I thought our position on that was if the state wants to tell us to do it, let the state tell us to do it.
So
That's what I thought.
Yes.
if I'm looking at it,
We'll stick with our guidelines. If they want to jump in,
They can. Mr. Chairman, talk to Jonathan Holbel at DEP. There is case law where some communities in Boston were forced to bring in 40B projects when they had sewer issues, and some weren't. So I think it's a case by case, as I understand it, but
So
that's
we roll
straight
the
from
dice.
Jonathan Holbel at DEP.
So we roll the dice.
So that's it. Whatever, you can't get blood out of a stone, however, if they're gonna mandate something, they gotta tell us how to do it.
All that you're doing with the 40B, if you deny them sewer, is that they have to put in their own system, whatever it is. I mean, they'll have to design their own septic, whether it's subsurface disposal or package treatment or whatever.
So-
That's all it means. They could still go forward, it's just that they're not gonna get it from you, they're gonna have to get it from themselves.
so we're looking at 83 Sandwich, which was what, 6 units?
That's new, yeah,
Well, we tabled it.
right.
We did Sutler's Glen, we tabled it,
Yep.
but we've never heard from Littleton Drive,
Well,
right? I mean, it's,
okay, I understand, yeah, no, we haven't. So, those have been tabled, they're still tabled.
yes,
Unless-
but at least, I would have expected Littleton Drive to have come before us to at least put it in our queue,
Well-
and I've heard nothing from it.
Then obviously they're not gonna build.
Well, they're coming for CPC for grant money.
Tell them no. Just tell them no. Give us the grant money so we can do more lining of pipes.
Well, I think it's one of the issues with that 40B with, and I've heard that too, that they can come in and bypass certain rules, but I believe that Massachusetts DEP is gonna start playing an active role in management of the discharge permit too. So it's like the state can't tell you, you can only discharge 1.56, but then you have to tie in, so it's, which end of the spectrum do you want us to break? You tell us. I mean, it's a contradictory statement.
So, do we need to put out a statement regarding additional capacity? I mean, we've talked about it, but should we, as the commissioners, put out a statement saying no more hookups, no new permits, something?
Well, based on the report that we have in front of us, I mean, we've paid for a report to have professionals do it and give us a
And that's their
answer,
recommendation.
and that's their recommendation. And I would think it'd be incumbent upon us to at least go with the recommendation when we say a moratorium. That's a limited time frame, hopefully.
Yes, but,
Hopefully, it's no longer than it takes to, the construction to take place on the.
And maybe there can be,
Basins.
for these projects that are in the middle of construction.
Yeah, they can continue. I mean, it's not like a moratorium is gonna be slam the door tight and throw a bolt across it. But it'll be a lot more stringent than what exists at the present
but
time.
we do owe it to the town, to the people who are coming in, we owe it to redevelopment authority, we owe it planning and zoning. We need to let those people know where we are with
They
capacity.
need to let these people know in the beginning that they need to come here first, before they make all of these promises.
Wow.
And I spoke to Ken about this.
Patrick makes a good point,
Huh?
unless they plan to do a private system.
Exactly.
System.
Exactly.
So you're not, I'm not gonna take and play that routine of play CYA for them. They've got a responsibility to let us know what's in the pipeline, what's coming down, because we've got a lot of things that have to
Okay.
be considered in order to make that happen.
Okay. Don't we have a responsibility, though, as commissioners, to at least be on the record as saying, right, making the statement?
What statement?
To the boards, that,
What statement?
no more approved.
I think
We've said that.
I think we just said that.
But that's a short-range solution. Are we gonna build another plant, or are we gonna get the thing in the canal?
Or put it underground
I
discharge.
mean, let's face it, the town can't grow until we do something.
Exactly.
So, everything we're talking about is Band-Aid.
That's for sure.
Gotta spend
it
big
is.
bucks. Where's it coming from?
Well, at this point, we need to see what Band-Aid we're putting where. And the Band-Aid, I mean, I think it's incumbent that we address this moratorium issue.
I'm guessing, and I think
Go ahead.
I'm guessing with some knowledge, that this list, you could establish a drop-dead date that they, a certain amount of time from now, saying, okay, you guys have a year to hook up, and if you don't, you lose the capacity. And I think that would fly in a court.
We had this.
However,
Go ahead.
shutting them off outright and saying, no, you can't have it, you're gonna lose that case all day long.
Exactly.
Because they already got the commitment, and they already spent a lot of money, and no court's gonna turn them away.
We're not gonna lose out. The town's gonna
I
lose
know-
out,
well,
because they're gonna sue the
I
town.
don't get me wrong.
I know.
I'm not, it's not
No.
directed to you or anything, it's the town, I realize it's all of us that we're talking about here.
Go ahead, Russ.
So what I can, of course, from an engineer as a conservative, this is our recommendation, we don't want to see these things happen, but the real thing the town has to consider is that, they need to take action and do something. So for the projects that are either in construction or made commitments to, this, I could only imagine that if there was a project, I read an article today about Bourne, a very large facility being built next to the hotel. They were estimating 16 to 20,000 gallons per day. It's in the middle of construction. It got put on pause because of COVID. Well, if they start back up again, we say, no more flows, you could expect some sort of legal backlash from that, right? So you're going to approach these properties that may be in the middle of construction that have flow allocated to them. So, okay, we work with them, we let that tie in, but after that, either no additional flows beyond the commitment, and still, if you tied those flows and you still had a non-permitted discharge, you could still say to DP, okay, look, as soon as it was brought to our attention from the engineered document, we took immediate action. We went in, we imposed a moratorium, we couldn't do it to the commitments that we had. We did everything within our power, to manage the situation. We have a contract out, so it's, of course, we're saying no flows now, because we don't want to see it. There's a known condition. But if it's going to create legal hurdles for every single property that's in the middle of construction, that's also going to be we don't, as engineers, we don't include that discussion in this report, but from a town's perspective, that might be something, and you could justify that to DEP and say, listen, we had to fulfill obligations that were made. The second we were made aware at a meeting, we acted on it, and that's where we're at.
I think that's a good point.
I mean, when I say a moratorium, it does, as I said, it doesn't mean we're gonna slam the door closed
On the commitments,
on the commitments.
right.
But we're gonna, as much as we can, push a commitment off time-wise to give the equalization basins a chance to come online.
And who knows, we could have the
That's
drought.
gonna
and
give
you-
us a place to,
Right.
at least give us some breathing room.
Right.
It doesn't change that, but it gives us some breathing room so we don't come into a problem
Right.
with overflow.
And hoping for the
Half of
best.
the ones that are on here right now, as far as I can see,
Right.
they're not gonna be picking up that much additional flow from these commitments alone within the next 9 months.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think
Well,
most
we
of
have
these-
4 that haven't even,
Anyway.
we have 4 that haven't even started yet.
So I'm not worried about them. I'm not
Totally
concerned
agree.
about them. The moratorium will affect them to a point.
Right.
But the ones that we've got committed to, if they need to come online, at least we should have a discussion with them when that time comes.
Well, maybe we ask the 4 that haven't started when they expect to start. I don't think it would hurt to say to
Fine.
Woodland Cove, to Assisted Living, to Chapel Lane, to AD Makepeace, Rosebrook, what's your target date for coming online?
Well, you can get that answer real quick as soon as you throw in a moratorium. They'll be hopping up and down, but that's okay.
No, but
It gets their attention. All I
need
want to
some
do is get their
information.
attention so we know what the
Yep.
hell's going on.
You'd have to think that if they started tomorrow and literally started putting shovels in the ground tomorrow,
Right.
that they're a year out before they actually can put something online, because they got
My point.
roads and things to build, they got their houses to build and everything else. By the time they actually send you any flow and get people into the houses and everything, they're probably a year away anyway.
That's my whole point.
Well, the
So
top 4
what?
are active.
We're not gonna be any better off in a year unless we do something.
Well, no, I agree with that.
Well,
I
so
agree with that. Other than,
getting them to slow down,
Other-
we're basically telling the town, don't grow.
yes,
that's a good point.
we are.
Okay, now we're not talking about just the ratepayers, now we're talking about all the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got to either build another plant, get an outfall pipe. I mean, we've got to spend some serious
So-
money.
Correct, and that comprehensive wastewater management plan that's being worked on, the point of that document is to outline what the town's options are moving forward for the next 20 years. You can do this, 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 and this. This is what each one costs, and whenever these plans are done, it's always the lowest cost one that meets the goals of the town. And that's how you select whether it's another plant, outfall pipe, groundwater, discharge evaluation, redoing the existing permit. There's probably a half a dozen.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'd like
One
to
of
make,
your recommendations is the town should continue efforts to expand discharge capacity either through permit modification or a new effluent discharge site.
We're doing that now.
We're doing
What are
that
you
now.
talking about? Where?
So, okay, good question. Good question. So, right now, there's some options, how do we get additional discharge? It was believed that the permit would not be, right now you're 1.56, but remember, the treatment plant can treat 2 million gallons. So there's about a 440,000 gallon per day difference there. So,
Our funnel is the discharge.
correct. So one of the things you can do to increase discharge is a sand infiltration bed. It looks like a big cranberry bog, but without the vines, just a big flat sandy area that they discharge the wastewater to. So we've started to look at that already, and the optimal sites are very, very close to the Agawam River. So in theory, the reason why they want you to do these discharge beds is because it discharges to the groundwater application. But it's so close to the Agawam River that we know the nitrogen, even though it's far reduced, is going to go right into the Agawam River. So the thought is, why don't we contact EPA and say, can we just modify the existing permit to increase it to 2 million gallons a day? But what they will very, very, very likely make us do is to expand the collection system, because we need to offset the amount of nitrogen that we're putting in, that additional 440,000 gallons per day. Even at a rate of 2 or 3 milligrams per liter, you're still adding nitrogen to a water body. And DEP wants to see, an EPA wants to see a net zero. They don't want to see any additional nitrogen going to the watershed. So you have to pick up septic tanks that have a much higher nitrogen concentration. So they'll make you expand the collection system to some area to pick up nitrogen for that. So that's what, and if we can do that by modifying the permit, it eliminates the need to build the sand infiltration beds. So we are working on both of those things right now as we speak as an option.
Mr. Chairman, also, I want to say, in our meeting tomorrow with the EPA, DEP, one of the things that we're bringing up also is that right now we're discharging 1.5 milligrams per liter. This month was 1.1. Our permit's 4. So if we take the numbers, the things we're getting now, and we open it up to 2 million gallons a day, well, then why would we have to do anything? Because we're already meeting well below the numbers that you require at 4 milligrams per liter. So the argument will be made that we shouldn't have to do anything, because our numbers are such that if you extrapolate 1.56 and do a 1.5 and take it to 2.0, that is not a significant increase. So the numbers within the 0.4 should be met. And that's what we're arguing on the nitrogen side. And also keep in mind, at 2 million gallons a day, the clarifiers can't handle it, the sand filters can't, so there'll be some modifications of the plant anyways.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Pat.
So, you know, in the original discussion about this outflow pipe, one of the reasons why it fell apart was because they were saying, well, multiple towns need to get involved, and a lot of the towns sort of wouldn't commit and so on. But, you know, I was just thinking, think about this now. It cost us $24 million for the upgrade of this plant, when we did the upgrade, right? $24 million. And today it would be much greater, obviously, to do an upgrade or add a plant or do whatever. And we were talking maybe $20 million to put the outflow pipe out, right? Somewhere in that range. It might be worth it. The town might have to end up expending that themselves.
I've said that
It
from
might
day
be
one.
worth, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Does it make more sense to spend 20 there and get the flow?
Okay.
And then just have a smaller upgrade at the plant and have, you know, virtually unlimited flow as for whatever we'd need?
But just for minor clarification, the thing didn't so much fall apart because of towns not agreeing. It fell apart because we didn't have any numbers to work with, so nobody wanted to commit to an unknown amount in there. So we got no
So that's,
support along those lines. The idea of doing the regionalization, as we've talked about, is better for us in the long run, because the potential for monies from the state federal under a regional proposition is better than an individual. That being said, back to what Pat mentioned, and I mentioned it 6 months ago, 8 months ago, that as far as I was concerned, that we need to get this discharge, the best bet discharge-wise for the town long-term, and I don't mean a measly 20 years, I mean for the next 60 or 80, is gonna be going out of the canal because of the amount that they've said that is potentially disposable down there.
right.
Whether you build a new plant, or you don't build a new plant, or how much you expand it, and all the rest of that stuff, that's another whole ballgame to discuss once you've got a place to drop your expulsion. Because right now, we've got the chokehold, as Peter's mentioned, at 1.56. We've got a capacity of 2, so with doing nothing, we can go up 400. Now, wherever, whether it's under what Guy was just mentioning, on the nitrogen, to be able to play that game in there, that's fine. You're also looking at a groundwater discharge, that's a Band-Aid, and we both know that.
Why is
It's
that a
made-
Band-Aid?
Because it's only gonna last for about 30 years, and then it's gonna be dead.
If that.
Maybe 20.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
okay, so max time, you're gonna be looking at that, and that's a dead issue. You know, if you're looking at getting to the canal,
Dump it over the ash pit.
that's gonna go forever. I'm sorry, go ahead, Russ, I'm rambling.
So, yeah, what we're trying to do in the short term is bump it up to 2 million, the discharge, whether it's through a sand bed or through permit modification. And that's But that's only going to cover the committed flows in here plus make pieces. So that is a very short-term solution. It might buy you a little bit of time, but beyond that 2 million gallons, once, again, you add up your existing flow, the commitments and make piece, that more or less brings you to 2 million gallons. So, okay, our Band-Aid is already used up. And remember, you have to expand the collection system to offset the nitrogen, so it actually may not be enough. But where we go beyond the 2 million is, what is that? How much more does the town need? Is it another 500,000, another million? And that's going to be told to us in the CWMP. So let's just say, sake of discussion, we need eventually 3 million gallons for the town of Wareham to meet all their goals. When you do an evaluation for a groundwater discharge, it's ideal to have, A, you need a parcel big enough, and with the 1 million gallons, I mean, you're probably in the 15, 20, 25 acres, well, not 20, but like maybe the 10 to 20 acres, somewhere around there. We already looked at a map. There's not a lot of town-owned parcels that are buildable, that are that size, within a few miles of the plant. So if you're pumping a pipeline of treated effluent 2.5 miles to a site in the woods that you have to clear, why aren't you looking at an outfall pipe to the canal just for the town of Wareham's future needs? You get rid of the need to maintain a bed. And again, it's all I'm saying is it's an option at this point that needs to be evaluated. So regionalization or not, looking at that outfall pipe might be a very viable option. I understand the guys already started looking at drilling, things like that. So that would be a very good long-term solution.
When you look at the canal, if you can look at going down there and say we can get that, and even as you indicate, Pat, which I support, if the town has to pay for it themselves, they has to. What it does, by having that outflow, we've got the plant that uses it. We've got towns around us that are gonna need it at some place, unless they wanna put in their own plants, and I probably give odds that none of them will want to because of the cost involved. So they're gonna be, if not partners in a regional thing, they're gonna become customers. So the plant is gonna have to expand at some point in time. There's no question about that. I think we know that right now from what we have and what we're dealing with. But going forward, it's gonna have to expand more, because you're gonna have 5 or 6 towns anyhow that become customers. And it's not gonna happen all at once, but it's gonna happen.
And it could offset your costs once they become customers, if that's the way it goes.
Like, you're absolutely right. It probably behooves us not, at this point, to look ahead and go move forward to that, whether it costs us 20 million bucks or not. Because, you know, it's probably gonna save us a ton of money than looking to build 24 acres or 20 acres of, what do you call it, and pump it and the whole 9 yards.
And you know, we could probably go to CPC for the funds.
I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
in the CPC regulation anything about feces.
No, it doesn't handle product.
Yeah.
Hey, worth a shot. Okay, coming back to the situation we're looking at here, what is the feeling on, or not on, a moratorium? And
We really need to give the town entities a heads up of where we are in writing, whether it be the right to Ken Buckland for zoning and planning, and to a redevelopment authority, and to the selectmen and the town administrator. We need to give them a heads up that in writing where we are. Not a face-to-face meeting, but something formally in a piece of paper that can be documented.
okay,
The newspaper
we
article
can do
covered
that.
it last week.
I don't want a newspaper article.
Jimmy.
I want something physically handed to the powers in town.
okay, Mac,
Well,
Just
Mac,
put a notice together?
for us, I will bring this to our meeting.
Everything's on hold.
And make it part of the record, so that way it'll cover us.
Can you make a change on page 4?
I can, you wanna do it?
Right? Jimmy.
It's 24 Oak Street, not 240.
Okay.
Sorry.
20 Oak Street doesn't, Peter would pick that up immediately. That's his neighbor.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I mean, I'll bring this and make it part of the record. It'll end up in our record, so you'll be all set as far as we're concerned.
Because we have to go through Warren and everything.
no, it's the railroad, it's where we were trying to go.
If we run straight out, Great Neck Road, all the way out,
We better get a machine out there and start digging the pipe.
that's all we have.
Well, they're looking,
Look
with
at
the new
Kleinfelder.
technology, that they can drill 10,000 feet.
Weinfelder, they're talking about going through
Looking at going from the plant directly to the Mass Maritime,
Going out to the seminary.
Yeah.
under everything.
No, they're talking
Coming up
about
in
going through
Onset Ave area, and then back under and come up at the
Talking about
canal.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing, some of the
It's
stuff they
amazing.
can do now, yeah.
And the cost is a lot less than digging the road, so we're looking at that now, we're
Well,
evaluating.
digging the road is kinda out of the question, at least for the next 5 years.
Because they have an outflow.
And even beyond that, I mean, the
Once they build it, they're not gonna let you back in it, so.
No,
you see the amount of time they're digging because of utility interference,
The
the whole 9
underneath
yards?
drilling is the way to go.
The only way to go.
Why can't we
Okay.
get that changed?
Next.
Okay.
Thank you for this, by the way.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Russ.
Okay, let's
you.
back up a sec.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I get it?
I noticed there were no cookies once again.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know.
You missed him.
No, he was,
It's all right.
you bring us
It's right
bad
down
news
here
and
on the
no,
record.
bad news and no cannolis.
Yeah, the new regulations say you can't take your mask off, so
Are you
that made it
sad?
difficult.
We had cannolis, you just weren't at the meeting.
it's
More than
absolutely-
once.
I didn't
Yeah, I had 'em.
Get some fish in it.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Okay, on this,
Oh, does Russ
Matt,
know our
stop,
town
one
meeting
second,
was,
one second, one second.
Yes, he does, it's
Mac,
postponed.
Mac,
that
you
we
were gonna
don't
make
have
a,
our 9 million?
what you just mentioned, make a motion on that, please?
Oh, moratorium?
Yeah, on the,
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Notification.
that, as of tonight, if approved by vote of this board, there is a moratorium on issuing any more capacity commitments.
I second.
okay. I got a motion and a second for moratorium.
Donna seconded.
I know. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 500.
Thanks, Russ.
Good night.
Yes, he is aware.
So he's away, we're not getting that 9 million?
We're working through it now.
Okay.
We can't meet our commitments, but we're trying to beg and grovel to see if it'll allow us to make our commitments.
Sandy, did you want to make a motion on your comment about notifying the world?
I don't know how much more we can do that.
I make a motion that the chair of the sewer commissioners notify the town, being the TA, the, what's Ken, planning,
Yep.
redevelopment authority,
Town departments,
selectmen, building department, and all others of our capacity concern.
Health Department.
Health,
Yeah, health would be a big one, yeah.
That's a big one. They're the ones that do the Title V, right?
the
Yeah,
Title V, okay, and health.
Well, because they don't have a Title V, then they can't have a sewer.
then they get to put in a Title V system.
Yeah, if they don't have sewer, they can't put in a title, they have to put in a nitrogen-reducing Title V.
Mr. Chair, I'm not so sure on
that right?
legalities, but
Yeah,
if
see, what
sewer-
happens is, I'm sorry, go
One
ahead.
second. Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Guy.
go
If
ahead.
sewer is available, then the DEP says they will tie in. However, if we have a moratorium, that changes that, so we gotta make sure we notify the DEP. So in other words, if somebody wants to put sewer on Oak Street, they wanna put a septic system. Sewers at Oak Street, they cannot put a septic system.
Right, but now they will
However,
be able to.
If there's a moratorium that says you can't tie in, then we need to notify DEP, so DEP can say to that homeowner, I know sewer's there, however, it's a moratorium, you can tie this, you can tie your septic system in. So we gotta be careful with
Do we
that.
want to put a time frame on the moratorium for 9 months?
yeah, I would.
To follow up on that guy,
Yes, a moratorium is strictly a moratorium. It's not a
if it's a
forever no.
moratorium, and
And
they,
it's-
and
and
they
it's for-
can't tie
it's for
in, so they
timeframe.
can't put it in.
And I'll add to Sandy's motion that DEP and whatever state
Then when the
agencies.
moratorium's
I
lifted,
can't,
are they under the
can't hear.
5-year
Hold
plan?
it.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
They get a 5-year plan, and I think we
Hold
got
it,
it.
hold it, Guy. Go, let's, Sandy,
Can we
finish.
finish the motion?
Finish it.
Let's finish the motion.
I added that we also notify DEP that we're doing a moratorium on hookups for 9 months.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 5 zippy.
Okay, now you can talk about whether or not sewer's available
So
or,
we have a policy that gives you a 5-year waiver.
No, I was just wondering how
yeah.
it worked with the moratorium.
And I think that with notifying the DEP, then we can work through all that,
So
whatever it is.
hypothetically, if I wanted to build a house, and the moratorium's, it's on, I can put a septic system in, but as soon as was lifted, I have 5 years to tie in.
Yes, that's one of our, yes.
And so if you're building a house, these people have to know this in advance.
They have to, and because it all has to be vetted out, and they have, because the DEP's gotta be notified that they're putting a septic in a sewer area.
Okay.
And
How
we'll
do we
vet all
make sure
out.
that happens?
Okay,
Yes.
on that particular issue all the way around. The moratorium's in place. Somebody wants to build a house. From your experience, Pat, or Mac, what is the projected timeline from getting approval to build a house and having it available to be occupied?
6 months.
6 months,
Until the first flush.
Okay,
Six
so theoretically,
typical.
theoretically, under this moratorium, we could still entertain somebody coming through looking for flow 9 months out. And if it fell within,
I have a question. We have sewered several sections of town, and there are what you call empty lots. Did we not accommodate those possible flows when we did the capacity?
Only if it was buildable.
Okay, so right now, Conservation just approved a building down at Rose Point.
That probably
So
wasn't buildable
that would
at
not
the
be
time.
part of the moratorium because those counts are already accommodated
No,
for.
ma'am.
no,
If that lot was buildable the day we went through, then that lot's accounted for. What happened in
That's-
Rose Point, because there was a water and sewer issue, those lots were unbuildable. Today, with water and sewer, they're buildable. So they're not accounted for,
Now,
no
what a-
betterment's been paid,
what
so
about-
they can be under the moratorium.
That's Rose, what about, say, Oakdale?
Oakdale, if the lot, it was vacant and buildable, we would account it for.
Okay, so it depends on what,
if it was accounted for, it's covered. If it wasn't accounted for,
okay, if it was
buildable
accounted
at the
for,
time.
there's no moratorium. If it was not accounted for, there's a
Right.
moratorium. I'm
Right.
just trying
I
to
agree.
move
Yeah.
that in my
I
head.
get it, yeah.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of
Thank you.
homes that we never accounted for sewer in Rose Point, in other
You just-
areas.
you just got
Because there
another
was no
one.
sewer. Now there's sewer, we're getting people taking these tiny lots and they're building on them.
Yep.
Same thing
They
with Swiss
got more.
Beach. We got lots that are tiny as tiny.
Okay, sorry. I
Okay,
just-
now that we've had this fun,
Yeah.
let's moving along here to Kleinfelder.
Mr. Chairman, it's just a simple, we have agreed to do the contract with Kleinfelder to do the tabletop, to drill from the plant to the Cape Cod Canal, under the river, under the rail, and come up somewhere in Onset Ave, and then go back under. So this is an amendment that the town we got from the town attorney. And so we're going back and forth. Kleinfelder answered our attorney, and they'll answer, so once this is totally agreed upon, then the contract will be done. But these are terms and conditions the town's putting on the contract, things like make no commitment, you didn't pay anybody, all that, so it's all
This is a
there.
no-cost addendum.
I'm sorry?
this is
No,
a
no cost of the
no-cost addendum.
contract, it's just language
This
issues.
is just a language change.
And again, as long as the language doesn't cost them more, then the contract shouldn't be increased.
Right.
So I just want you, we're working through this, we should get this done soon, and then we can get that tabletop done so we can
You
start
need a,
drilling
you
or
need
see
a vote
what.
on that?
No, I want the board to be aware, because
Okay.
that's now into legal, and you just need,
Okay.
because that's where that is, so. And then I have the Cinegro, well, maybe, let me just make sure I don't step out of bounds.
Yeah, Cinegro contract is next.
Yes, Cinegro. This is an amendment to the contract with Cinegro. We've talked for quite some time about the issues with sludge throughout Massachusetts, actually throughout New England. And there's a procurement regulation that says we do not have to bid this. We've been bidding this for years. Well, in the procurement law says it doesn't have to be bid. Sludge doesn't have to be bid out. So I brought that to Mr. Bowen's attention. He reviewed it. And so we're extending the present contract for another year, because we had talked about the increase of funds or costs up to 40%, and that there's no capacity. We have more sludge than capacity throughout New England. So we're going to protect the town of Wareham. We're going to be proactive here. We're going to extend the contract we have that ends in June. We're going to extend it for another year. and this is the
We can
extension.
only extend it for a year?
We did, 1
Can
year.
we extend it for more than that?
Well, I probably, I think we can write, I think at that point, we'd have to write a new contract, so we're gonna, at least we got a year.
Yep, all right.
And it also is a 10% increase and no CPI adjustment, so there's some conditions. So at least we have another year. So at the end of this year, no, we have another year, we'll start this investigation all over again, and we have to extend it. We just want to make sure that we don't run out, because if we can't move sludge, we're in serious trouble. So that is done, so I think we,
What's the cost?
I need the board to vote on that. I think I gave you a slip for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
what's it,
Did I miss the dollar amount?
428.65?
It's the present condition, it's in there.
Oh, so we're approving the cost per dry
Dry ton
Dry
per
ton and
per
load.
load is
And per
what,
load,
so
yeah.
no dollar, no total dollar, because we don't know how much.
It averages
stuff.
$400,000 a year. That's what we're personally spending now. So you add that by 10% increase.
Yeah.
And that's what those numbers represent.
It's running roughly 40 grand a month.
That's what it represents. Yes.
So I make a motion, we extend the Cinegro contract for 1 year.
Second, anybody?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, water discussion, this is to looking at getting selectmen's assistance where it's necessary to try to get the water readings on a regular basis so we can move forward with an EDU, whatever we call it, adjustment, and try to get something that's more equitable for all the residents that are under sewer.
Yeah,
Yes, Pat?
right, so, this is sort of a point that I brought up and that we've been, when it comes to making an agreement with the two districts, it has to be done by the selectmen anyway,
We know that.
because that's, whatever. And it's been difficult, I know, and there's been a lot of back and forth and so on. And, these are really public records. And as public records, they really have to give them to us. And I think we'd like you to sort of drop that in our lap and let us get it for you and resolve the issue and sign a contract with those guys. And then you can do whatever you want with it after that. It's up to you.
Well,
But I'd
we'll-
like you to just kind of allow us to go ahead and make that happen.
What we're looking for is to be able to receive,
You need them, what, twice a year, or do you want them monthly?
whatever works for them,
Okay.
we'll adjust to on that
Okay.
particular
And
basis.
we have ways to go after it. There's been talk with council and everything else, and we believe we can get those things resolved quite quickly.
Would appreciate it.
We're looking to try to get this on a,
And then we'll hand the
Regular
rates over
basis.
to you, you'll have the numbers all the time,
Yep.
and then you can go ahead and work
Then we
out
can
whatever it
figure out
is
what
you're
it's
gonna
gonna be.
work out. Okay?
Now, has the selectmen voted to do this work?
Well, we
They
talked
will.
about it at a meeting, and I made the suggestion, and everybody seemed on board. We didn't actually take a
There
vote
was no
on it.
vote.
There was no vote.
No.
But the first thing was for you guys to give us, look, nobody wants, nobody wants to, we want to work together. Nobody wants to step on anybody's toes. Nobody wants to do anything. So we come here and ask you if it's okay if we get involved and get this done. And if you say yes, then I can bring it to selectmen and say, look, they've authorized us or allowed us to do this. Is everybody on board and get a vote of the town? I believe it would be a successful vote.
I make a motion that we, what?
Can I, for the record, put down at least bullet form what we are asking the selectmen to do for the sewer commissioners?
Yeah, to just
Already
get
have it down?
to get the water readings from the two districts.
water readings from
Basically,
both
that's what you're
districts.
asking us to do.
That's it.
That's exactly what I'm making a motion.
That's it.
So,
And we'll
just
take
the
care of
water
it from there.
readings
Can we
on a regular basis.
We're not gonna design the system or anything. That's up to you guys and your
say
engineers.
electronically on a flash drive? I don't want a piece of paper.
Whatever they decide
No,
that-
we don't want a piece of paper.
Well,
Wait a minute, careful how you say this now.
Oh, yeah,
we'll get it, whatever method that the town can handle it in, which is what you need it in.
that's exactly.
You know what I mean? That's-
Getting
we'll-
something.
We'll get it. We'll get it so that you can use it. That's the key.
We have it today, we're just asking it to be done more regularly, correct? We have data from both districts.
We have a one-time shot.
One time, that's all we got.
We have data today from both districts.
Right,
What we're
that's-
asking it for is on a reoccurring
Yes.
timetable.
On a regular
Okay.
basis, whatever
Right,
their
and that's-
readings
And
are.
that's what my motion is
What's
to
your-
authorize the selectmen to
Negotiate.
acquire the information from the water departments for the sewer commissioners.
The water readings,
In
We'll,
perpetuity.
we'll make host agreements, you know, and put them together and get you what you need. I promise you, that'll happen.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
No, don't say
100
it
years.
that way.
What?
Perpetuity, 100 years.
at
Why
least.
doesn't it go that way?
All I'm saying is that 5 years in a row they stop, then we've got to change our way.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
doing it.
usually they do it in perpetuity. That
assist.
would be how it would be. It would probably be, you know, a 99 agreement with
Something
some
that's,
kind of.
yeah,
Painting the water.
that's more than fair.
Yeah,
Biannual.
yeah, we'll make it happen.
All right, you know what, Peter? I
Okay,
withdraw my motion. Go ahead, you do it.
Yeah, the motion is the sewer commissioners request the assistance of the selectmen in biannually obtaining the water rates.
no,
So
the water readings,
Water readings, yeah.
water readings, not the
water
rates,
rate-
Readings.
not the
I know what
rates,
he
the
meant.
readings.
We know what you meant.
Well, what's the difference between water readings and water rate?
One's money and
Oh,
the
okay.
other,
One is- one
Basis
is
how much?
flow.
Water readings, right.
Yes,
All right.
that's fine with me. That works.
I second.
Yeah, that's fine.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. 5 zippity zippity.
Awesome. I'll bring it to the board on Tuesday night. I'm pretty sure we can
Of course,
start working on it.
this is depending that the selectmen vote to assist us.
That doesn't go in the minutes.
No,
and
but
that's,
that,
yeah, of course it does. Of course, it's depending on them. If we don't get
That's
it,
a-
we don't get it.
Yeah, that's out of our hands now.
okay.
We're just tossing it over there and requesting
Okay.
their
You
assistance.
just tossed us the ball. Now we
That's
gotta
all.
either
That's as
bounce
far
it
as
or
we need
send
to go
it
with
back.
So
All's
you
gonna
twist the arm.
Okay, Guy, your report, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make it brief. As I said, tomorrow we're meeting with the EPA, DEP to discuss increasing the flow to the river. We have a 4 milligrams per liter discharge of nitrogen to the river. We're averaging between 1.5 and 2. This month is 1.02. This year's average is going to be well below 2. So we're going to petition them. We start that meeting tomorrow, but via Zoom at 8 o'clock. The project on C Street, we got 2 lines in. We've got from Waugh to C Street. We also have from Ross to the manhole along the wall, 227 feet. It's really going quicker than we thought. I should tell you that we started practicing in Hamilton Beach at no cost to the town. So we lined on Allegro, we did 200 feet, and then on Shar, I believe, we did 100 feet. No cost to the town to try. The first line, we used fiberglass liner with the aquatic safe epoxy. It was real stiff. It took a long time to get it in. Took 70 pounds of pressure, which is ungodly, which is actually dangerous. We modified the specs to get a felt liner that moves along. So we impregnated with the exact same epoxy, aquatic safe epoxy, that carries a little bit looser, if you will, and it went like a breeze. And so in our experiments in Hamilton Beach, we took that to Mirror Cove, and it's working out really, really good. We found the manholes that are in Smith's project. We busted up the asphalt. Everything's being done by hand. We're hand carrying the blocks out there to raise both manholes 4 feet. And then we're gonna podge them and then epoxy, aquatic safe epoxy internally to make them one unit. So we started that project, we're in the middle of that, which is pretty exciting. So the project is going as projected. We put another blast out yesterday to the residents to let them know that we're starting, and that if they had questions, there's a resident engineer on site, and they also have my cell number to call me if they have any questions as we go through this project. We notify the neighbors a day ahead of time if it's going to affect them personally. We get a general notification to the neighborhood that we're in the neighborhood and we're doing our work. We notify the fire department because of the steam, and so everybody's aware of what's going on. So we're moving along, and we're pretty excited about it. And I'll keep the board informed as we move along and we complete the project.
And may
Go ahead, Sandy.
I, Dave Pichetta, myself, from Conservation Commission, met with Guy on site on Smith Street, Smith Ave, Smith's, whatever.
Yeah, Smith's,
And looked at one of the buried manholes, and we got confirmation that all work will be done manually, no machinery on the beach, and conservation was fine with it.
it just takes, let's take us 4 days to do something that machine could do in a day. However, it protects the environment.
Okay. Well, that's good.
They sure do start early.
It's all tide related. The work can only be done, like now, the last couple of days, we started late. High tide, low tide today, I think it was 6:50.
Those
So-
trucks go by my house awful early.
Well, yeah, that's,
Well, they're on the
That was-
program to wake you up.
that was the experiments because there's no time limit. We want to do that at high tide because when only when we're trying to experiment with the flexibility of the liner, it's cure time. Because the disbursement of heat, you have to heat it and you're in water, the water table. So it's good to do experiments at high tide in Hamilton Beach, which is surrounded by water, to see how much dispersion of heat would be and how much we have to put to the pipe and duration to make it cure. So all that stuff was worked out. So I'm sorry I woke you up. If I had known, I'd have told him to get the horn a little bit.
Well, he overslept anyhow.
Just how does I affect that process?
I&I, so when we line a pipe with I&I, we have to put a little bit of, if you will, a spot patch, or we do some filler on the outside. I forget what you call it. You pump it in. Oh gosh, it just slipped me. You pump it in, and it hits the water, and it hits the pipe, and it stops that particular leak. Then you line the pipe.
So as long as the I is just a leak, it's not a problem.
No.
It's only when something's above the 70 pounds you're talking about, like the sump pump.
Well, the sump pump's a whole new world because,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
I understand that.
we're holding pressure at 9 pounds. Sump pumps are 30, 50, 80, 100, 200 pounds of pressure. So we can't hold against that. So the sump pump blows the side of that liner, gets underneath it, and when it cures malformed. And it's hard. So the difficulty is to go back and grind it
Internal
out.
blister.
Gosh, it takes days to get 10 feet. I mean, days, because it's so hard. I think we had to get a diamond tip shipped in just to continue to cut it. We were on Swiss
I
Beach.
remember what that was.
So it's kind of nasty, but, and you know, I gotta be frank, you tell people to shut off the sump pumps, and next time we do a sump pump, in a lot of sump pumps, I'm gonna actually dig on the side of the road, and I'm gonna disconnect their pipe. So there's no option. They just don't have the option.
Keep it simple.
To me, it's the only way to do it with a guarantee. Any other way, because you tell people, they tell you yes, they know, but it doesn't stop the sump pumps from pumping. So that's where we are with that, so, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
What about the Smith Street change order?
I'm sorry?
The Smith Street change order?
Well, that's, so we have a change order. It's roughly about between $12,000 and $15,000 because of that rising of those manholes. We made a decision when we found how deep they were to bring them to the surface of the marsh, because we still have to maintain them, we still have to clean them. So it makes no sense to dig 4 feet every single time. So we added a change order that's telling them to add the blocks, build them up 4 feet, and then make them watertight, podge them, and epoxy inside to make them watertight, and make them homogeneous with the manhole. That was not in the contract, so we got to add that to the contract.
And how many manholes?
The two on Smiths.
Just the two on?
Yes, the two on Smith, because they weren't part of the, every manhole that we're doing on Mears Cove is all in the contract, but these two were not. The rising of them, we were gonna repair them, or we're gonna line them, but the riser was never discussed. And because, it's crazy, the digging was exceptional, and now it's like, it's a 4-day process.
Okay. All right. Sump pumps, we pretty much talked that one through a little.
There's a grant, Mr. Chairman, for the sump pumps we're looking at. What the state is saying, we may want to tie them into, because of MS4, we may want to tie them into stormwater. And so we're looking into that, we're looking for a grant to explore that. It's just that the dilemma is going to be is the cost of doing that, and the homeowners probably won't bear it. But as Russ had pointed out earlier, if we calculate the cost of doing that ourselves, and gaining capacity, it may be a lot cheaper in the long run. So we're going to look into it anyways and see where that goes.
Okay, that's great. Stone Path is still Stone Path?
Still waiting for documentation.
Okay.
So, and again, talk about capacity, they know they can't expand. And it's because when we did the original permit, we never talked about events. All we talked about is tasting. They have beers with people they sold malt to, they're just gonna be tasting little cups. It's way beyond that. And that flow has never been accounted for, never been allocated, but, so we're asked them to submit to us the investment that'll give us all the flows, and we haven't seen those yet.
Any new homes connected to sewer? I know we're making a dent in that number
We
that
just
we
did
had.
one in Indian Neck today. I inspected that, that's online today. That's all I can remember in this week.
And the EDU rate situation, that's in Pat's hands. So he'll get it all straightened out for us. And
Now, once we get the data, what are we gonna do with it? Do we have a program we can buy or use from another town?
You're gonna have to, first of all, you have to figure out what to do with the data, in as, how you're gonna charge. You're gonna have rating for commercial, you're gonna have rating for, and that's by how much water you use. So let's say that you say, if you get, whatever the number is, 60
That's a lot
gallons
of
a day.
work. Who's gonna do it?
We're gonna have to hire somebody to do it.
We paid somebody to do it.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
They didn't, we have those numbers.
They didn't have the information.
But they didn't have the information to continue on. We did a basic number,
Now,
on
who was
probably about
that?
5
They
years
didn't
ago.
have the numbers. They still could have given us the,
Was it
the,
Weston
the
and
the
Sampson?
solution. And we could plug our numbers in.
They didn't come up
I
with
still
shit.
say we should be going after those people.
They came up with nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever the
But we
various,
weren't giving them anything.
Is
That's
there a
what we're basically
software
looking
at.
package
Hire 'em again.
available?
No.
not to my knowledge, we have to find out. I mean, there's all kinds of software, but somebody's gotta have the ability to plug into that software and then to program that software and work that software and all that good stuff. And I don't think it's a
But
plug
the
and play.
surrounding towns do it. Why can't we
well, we're gonna
learn
have to
from?
figure out what we're gonna
Yeah,
be,
let's get the
what we're gonna
information
get it
first.
in and what it's gonna fit into.
Yes, so we need to know the cost.
No, we need to know what we're gonna, how we're gonna get this information in what format,
Correct.
in order to know what it's gonna go into. Then we look at the cost of getting the software that's gonna be able to handle that. You can't get the software first and then get the other stuff and find out that you've gotta write a patch between the two, because if you have to write a patch, it won't work.
And then you gotta implement
Never
it.
have.
Because it's gonna cause a lot of deviations. Some people that are paying nothing are gonna pay a lot, some people are paying a lot, gonna pay nothing, and there's gonna be a lot of, so you talk about the main and the outliers, and it's all gotta be, how do we implement it? As an example, when we did a case study, a person's $5,000 a year became $85,000. So you tell a business, hey, listen, we got new water rates, you're gonna spend $85,000 a year. Well, that could be a deal breaker, so implementation is gonna be a consideration also.
That's further on down the road.
Fair is fair.
Yeah,
I get it.
but that's further down, that's,
You pay for it. Nobody else should be subsidizing you.
I mean, that's,
I agree with you.
but that discussion is further down the road. Right now, it's getting the numbers
Little old lady,
to start.
you know how they, I mean, at that.
They're not hearing you.
I'm sorry, they do nothing, you know, so, all right, never mind.
No, you're right. I get it, absolutely. And to your point, the little lady has no options to obtain more money. The business does.
Okay, COVID-19, business relief, anything? Anybody have
I
anything
don't know, I
on it?
think we should take that off of there.
Okay,
We didn't do anything with it.
Well, I had it last meeting and was told not to discuss it because you wanted the whole board here. I have an idea.
We're here.
Okay.
We're listening.
Now, I don't know what type of relief we can get because I don't know the numbers we need to run the plant. But I was thinking that any business that was required to shut down by the state for 1, 2, 3 months, we only charge them 1 EDU for that time period they could not be in business. That would be a lot of work, a lot of businesses to say whether or not, okay, the bar, a bar hasn't been able to be open unless they're serving food, then they become a restaurant. But if someone chooses not to open, when the state released them, then we don't give them relief for that period. But something like Water Whiz, who is only open June, July, and August, we don't give them relief for the whole year, but just those 3 months they normally would have been open, they couldn't open. So that was what I was thinking, that reduce the EDU to 1. I don't know whether or not we're talking a place that has 19 EDUs and we make them 1 for 4 months. I don't know the impact of the cost reduction to our budget bottom line. Without that, I don't see how we can do anything.
are we reimbursed for this?
I don't know.
Through some government program?
I don't know.
No,
I don't think so.
no.
What about the unemployed homeowner?
No, no change to the homeowner.
he
They're
gets
still
no re-
living
so he
there.
gets no
They're still
relief.
using. This is just the businesses who
Okay.
by law,
We're not using it.
who were by law required to be closed. That's all I was looking for.
Well, the motel that we denied the abatement, were they required to be closed?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
They are seasonal, I understand. They're only open a couple, they're not open year-round, but they were not required to be closed.
Travel
All I
restrictions,
want to know is if they were required. If they were
isn't there
required,
travel
I want it to be-
restrictions? So if people,
I'm,
sorry, if people can't travel, then how do they use their facility?
the,
Yeah, but
there wouldn't really, I don't
Rosebrook
know
is
of
open.
anything that prevented people from coming.
Rosebrook Hotel is open. Been open right straight through.
And they would minimal, right? I mean,
But
they have.
that's
Back
still
on,
open. I'm
but they're
just
still
saying,
open.
by state law, you are required to be closed for 1, 2, or 3 months. We know you can't do anything, but we'll charge you at least 1 EDU for those, prorate it for that time period. But it would, to me, a lot of research, impact on our bottom line, since our budget was set based on full EDUs from everybody and reducing it. I'm just saying, I don't know how to implement my suggestion cost-wise. I don't know how many businesses, what the impact is. I don't know what businesses have what EDUs and how much,
Where are you getting this information?
what information.
That there is relief out there?
I didn't say anything about relief.
She didn't say
Okay,
anything.
well, then, if somebody's business was impacted, if they had to close down, let's just say the barber shop, for instance,
Yep.
it would be incumbent on him to come to us for an abatement.
He wouldn't get abatement because his water was never turned off.
But he could if we allow something under COVID-19.
Yes, so to me, the idea of reducing to, the barber shop was closed for 3 months. During those 3 months, I don't know what his normal EDU rate is, we would charge him 1 and then give him an adjustment for anything over 1 for 3 months.
So charge him 75%.
Whatever,
But I mean, now, he was required to be
Yes,
closed.
that I'm saying.
As opposed to the motel that was not required to be closed.
that is correct. We have a restaurant who, sorry, we have a restaurant
Well,
that
exactly.
chose to be closed beyond the time they were allowed to be open. They would not be adjusted except for those
Right.
EDUs that they were required to be closed. They chose
So
not to.
We'd go by the state guidelines on when they
Yes.
were allowed to open.
Yes, and so we,
They did or they didn't, that's up to them.
that's up to them. But we
Right.
know when we closed down in mid-March to when they opened up based on the state. But
Well-
again, I don't know how to fund this cost-wise.
Can I ask a question? Were these businesses able to apply for relief fund from the COVID fund?
I have no idea.
Well,
Beyond
by
my
the
pay
same
grade.
token, while they were closed, they sent us no material, therefore our cost should have gone down proportionally.
But everybody else who stayed in their homes sent us more material than they normally do, so we don't have a decrease
Trade-off.
in the product.
The impact of the plant didn't change. We still worked hours, nobody got time off, I mean, nothing changed for us. And the flow was compensated, so now the kids are home, everybody, and then all the rags went crazy, so our efforts became more and more difficult, and there were more. So how do we recoup that cost? How does the town recoup that cost?
Yep. You asked for, that's my thought. I don't know if anybody else was thinking.
That was a good thought, but again, I'm wondering, how do we know if these businesses haven't applied for those COVID relief small business
Well,
loans?
you got the PPE,
Yeah.
but that was to keep your employees employed. You could only use a small amount of it for like rent and stuff like that. The rest of it had to go to pay your employees.
75,
Yeah,
was it
so
75%?
Unless they
Yeah.
come out with a new plan, right now, there isn't any money around to have. So, and they've been fighting over it and probably won't happen till after the elections.
I think we better stay away from it, because Guy makes a very good point. although they weren't at work.
They were at home flushing.
Yeah.
But therefore, they were using our system from a different source.
I was asked to think about an alternative. This was what it was, and I don't know how to
That was-
fund it.
I appreciate your thoughts,
Yeah,
Mac, did you?
no, I agree.
and I wish that we were financially able to.
I don't know how the hell you figure it out.
No, I know.
I
It
think
would be
it's,
one at a time.
I think it's Pandora's box.
All right, do we have any new business?
Yeah, Jimmy, for the next meeting, I believe, right, we've already approved a time limitation on new commitments.
1
9
year.
months.
We not,
The 9 months.
No,
new
1 year.
commitments, new
When-
commitments. What
If you
do we
don't
put?
use your, if we
Oh,
allocate
yeah,
a
yeah,
gallon, if you
yes,
don't use
yes,
it in a
that's one
year,
of my
A
questions.
12-month
you
limit?
lose it. We got 12 months now, we use it.
All right,
That's one of my
so
questions for
if you're
legal.
talking to council, this is the way I'm looking at it. We've made commitments that are tying up capacity. So capacity is an issue. The second issue is those commitments aren't billable. So what kind of a business are we running here? Forever not billable? Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
In a sense, we're holding
So
gallons
we better
for you.
look at it and we better be legal, but I
I
don't
had
think
the-
you
I-
can make a commitment for
I
eternity.
have that on
I'm
my,
sorry.
I had that on my list already to talk to him
Very
about
good.
about a time limit
I-
on these things. Can we have a commitment out there, can we cut them off after a time frame? We're
Even though
talking
we
about a
never
year
did.
right now.
At previous commitments, right?
Or a non-refundable application fee?
I don't want to get in a legal issue
I
for
wouldn't go
with
there.
the, I don't want the town to get in a
No, I
legal
understand.
issue.
That's
but
why,
That's not the way you run it.
no.
I'd like to point out one thing if I can. One thing is that the COVID issues are rising pretty good. We're having a spike coming through, it looks like. And of course, when you start to see these cases, it kind of takes a while before it actually works out. So the selectmen are going to go back to Zoom meetings. And I think a lot of people are going to be doing that, so I don't know if you do that, but you might think about it for a while and keep people
I looked at the map tonight, it's not encouraging.
paying. Yeah, it's not encouraging at all. We had 24 in like 1 week or something, so it's pretty high. I forget what exactly, it was 24. It was in a
that
very
because-
short period of
Is that
time.
all because of the selectmen's meetings?
Excuse me?
Was that all because of the selectmen's meetings?
Yeah, it was probably. No, it probably has nothing to do with any of us, but that's not the point.
true.
The point is that we figure we have to lead the way and try to help everybody to stay safe,
When are you going to
Thank you.
start with your Zoom meetings,
This next meeting is a Zoom meeting.
even though there was nothing on the agenda?
It's a small agenda, but it's a Zoom
No,
meeting.
The
Oh,
idea-
it wasn't, but it's on the new agenda,
There's a new one?
yeah.
Thing I've learned
The-
from this.
Okay,
just
here's
came
my
out.
question. Who's going to run the Zoom meeting? I cannot get meetings on Zoom without asking Matt to work overtime in the evening to manage my Zoom. Who's going to do our Zoom meetings for town?
Well, we have, what do you call it, do our Zoom meetings?
Steve.
Steve. He handles our Zoom meetings. I imagine he handles yours too.
He did
You
last
usually are on TV, right? So then he handles your Zoom meeting. He'll send you the links and everything.
Yep.
If he's doing it right now, they do it for that. So it's,
Steve is the one that handles all of that.
yeah, so.
I was talking about the
Just
smaller-
do us a favor, will you? Make sure the video's off if you want to do anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Oh, you're live.
Know what's being presented.
Do it, Donna.
Behind you as well.
Yeah, make sure everything's off.
Do it, Donna.
Don, I'm gonna
Mr.
kick
Chairman,
you.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Good point.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
November 12th is our next
Good night.
Night,
Thanks
thank you.
for your help, Patrick.
Thank you.